what was supposed to be flexed for sex appeal is now flexed for fun? Let's discuss Crossover Thursday.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
For Thursday, week 17, if you haven't appreciated football so far, that's on you. Alex Clancy, Travis Rodgers. Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals. Travis Rodgers, Locked On Rams. In what's set to be a letdown for half of the people watching this, with the Cardinals out of contention and the Rams just skyrocketing up the charts on the NFC West. It's going to be a fun matchup. It always is with these two teams, and always happy to have my buddy Travis to talk to. Thanks for making Crossover Thursday your first listen, free wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode of Crossover Thursday is brought to you by Prize Picks. Download the app. Use code LOCKEDONNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. Travis, a lot has happened since week 2. A lot has happened since the Rams decided to start playing football in like week 8, and the Cardinals decided to stop playing football like week 12. And it's such a fascinating year for both teams because you could see it as flipped. Maybe the Cardinals, start hot or start slow and the Rams start hot, but we still get to the same place. And, Puka Nacua getting hurt in week 1 being out, Cooper Kupp getting hurt. And then, the Cardinals predominantly being healthy, but not really having a North Star still. Mm-hmm. It's been kind of Travis mockery of a season for both teams. One is on the rise, and one is now removed from playoff contention. Before we get to the Cardinals' biggest story and things like that, selfishly, because this is the Cardinals segment, yes, I want you to tell me what you think is wrong with the Cardinals, or if they're just not a complete roster and this is 2025, for the ramp up.
Yeah, it's funny, Alex, because I think what you said a second ago is exactly right. This is a team without a North Star. This is a team that doesn't have a thing that they can hang their hat on, right? It doesn't have to be, the same thing as everybody else. It doesn't have to be the quarterback. It doesn't have to be an edge guy that blows up the quarterback. It doesn't have to be a dynamic playmaker and wide receiver or a super elite head coach, but it has to be something. And they don't have any of it, right? They have some guys that are good, but I don't know if there's anybody that's great. And I think that's the secret to this league is you need to be great at least one thing. If you're great at 2 things, then you got a really, really good team. You got a chance to go do some special things, but you got to be really good at least one thing. And when I look at the Cardinals, they're not really good at anything. Is their coach okay? Yeah, he's okay. Is Kyler Murray a special guy? No, not really. He's fun. He's fun to watch from a distance. I wouldn't want him as a quarterback of the team that I root for. He's fun to watch, but he doesn't scare me when you go to play against him. He's not one of those guys that, hey, don't let him have the ball last. He's going to break your heart. He's not one of those guys. They don't have something on defense that's like, hey, no, whatever happens, make sure that guy has a couple of guys on him at all time. There's no Myles Garrett or TJ Watt or Aaron Donald or any of those guys that you're just terrified of blowing up your entire game plan. They're just entirely mediocre, kind of across the board. There's some guys that are good players, but in the NFL, you got to be really good at least one thing, and I don't think that they are. They're not terrible, but they're not great at anything.
Yeah, and, I would say Budda Baker's the guy on defense that we schemed against, but the thing is that they don't have a pass rush. So without a pass rush, it doesn't matter how good your secondary is. If you don't have a pass rush, it doesn't matter how bad your secondary is if you do have a pass rush. I mean, Look at the Rams with Aaron Donald. Aaron Donald's, an all-world generational guy, but with him, he covered up a lot of holes in the secondary because he was getting pressure on the quarterback in less than 2 seconds. But the Cardinals not having a pass rush and having a very young cornerback room specifically has been at times like a social psychology experiment on steroids where it's like, how are these guys doing this? They're playing very well. Garrett Williams is one of the top graded corners in the league, second year out of Syracuse. Max Melton's played fine his rookie year. And then you have Budda Baker being able to just play his role, not having to cover for a lack of talent in the TB room, but still, I think most of what you're saying is accurate. I almost wish the Cardinals just won 4 games this year like they were supposed to. It would have really, because that's the struggle here. And we'll get to the Rams too, because it's interesting. Their roster isn't very good.
No.
Okay. And the fact that what they're doing is kind of, and we'll talk about coaching, I promise. I kind of wish the Cardinals would have just won 4 games because been like, okay, it's 2025. It is. That's what the plan was. This roster was in shambles at the end of 2022 when Steve Keim left. For Rams fans, this is one of my favorite things I ever said. If you want some context on what Monty Osborne had to clean up, you have one of those friends growing up that would come over, play with your toys, and then leave without helping you clean up. That's what Steve Keim did to this roster. And that's what he did to this organization. It was in shambles. He goes, I'm out of here, or for whatever reason. And that's what Monty Osborne has had to do. Now, a lot of Cardinals fans are not good with that because they went 6-4, because they had a 4-game winning streak, but because they look like, a sneaky team to potentially win the NFC West in the middle of the year, regardless of who's on the roster. And then the pumpkin happens. The Cardinals pumpkin, same time every year. And Kyler Murray's been the quarterback for the last 6 years of that. So that's the vitriol, and it's potent, man. Like, it is like, get rid of Kyler Murray. And my problem with that is, how many Aiden O'Connells are out there that you are overlooking before you realize that good sometimes is good enough in this league? And there are very few elite quarterbacks in this league, Travis. That's what I struggle with.
I agree with you. And this is why, the conversation that you and your everydayers are going through right now, talking about, good is sometimes good enough. There aren't a million elite quarterbacks in this league. I'm with you. And this might be the conversation that the Rams are having a year from now. Everybody is gearing up for the possibility that this is Matt Stafford's last year in LA, last year with the Rams. And, there's not another Matthew Stafford that's just going to walk in and take his spot. Look, the Rams, like I was saying a second ago, and I know we'll get to them in a little more detail, but they're really good at 2 things. They've got a really good coach and they've got a really good quarterback. That's a great starting point. Like, if those 2 things are good, like you said a second ago, Alex, the Rams roster is not loaded with a ton of talent, but they've got a coach that gets his guys ready to go, that competes. You've got a quarterback that can make some stuff happen. You got a playmaker here or there, a Puka Nacua, a Kyren Williams, and everything else is pretty good. But I'm with you when it comes to Kyler Murray. He's okay. He's probably in the top half, or he might be exactly at half. He's somewhere right in that spot. You might get worse before you get better, but you're kind of capped out with a guy like that too, unless everything else around him is absolutely terrific. Like, if you've got playmakers, if you got a coach, if you can scheme and all these things, and then you have Murray that's kind of the guy that's running it, sure. But when you're asking him to be special and he's not, good luck.
Yeah, I mean, and there's just situations are so rooted in confirmation bias one way or the other. Well, look at Jared Goff. He's got everything around him. No, Jared Goff has elevated that roster, and he's brought stability after Matthew Stafford left. Like, it was like the movie Rockstar. I mean, I talk about it almost every time that we, for some reason or another, Matthew Stafford will be doing the same thing in Detroit that Jared Goff is doing, probably to a T. Okay, they're a little bit different. Matthew Stafford's maybe a little bit more special. Jared Goff does other things better than Matthew Stafford. He's more careful with the ball now than Matthew Stafford was when he was in Detroit. They've got every player is fringe Pro Bowl player at necessary spots in Detroit. So, anybody could do that. Or it's because Jared Goff is so stable that it allows everything to be unlocked and allows Dan Campbell to look like a genius because he lets guys just go play. And that's something with Jonathan Gannon. It's like, Jonathan Gannon, the first part that you said, and we're going to talk about coaching to start in the next segment, but what you said first part about Sean McVey is Jonathan Gannon does have these guys prepared. He does have these guys ready to play. The issue is situational football that he's never come into contact with as a head coach. There's been 10, 12 times this year. He's never experienced when to call this timeout, when to go for it on 4th down or 3rd down. And I know it's like, well, you get paid the big bucks to do that, but it's like, these people are human beings, and it's really showing his human side this year, which is something that's really, flummoxing some people and having them back off a little bit to Jonathan Gannon's a guy for the future. So, I'm fascinated to talk about the Rams, and obviously the Cardinals are out of contention. We'll talk about past the victory in the 3rd segment. Yeah. This is going to be a fun game because it's the Rams and the Cardinals. It's at SoFi where the Cardinals have played pretty well after Cliff Kingsbury has been removed. So, we'll talk about – I want to talk about Sean Payton. I want to ask how Puka Nacua is always open. The Cardinals have had struggles with wide receiver ones getting open this year. Maybe I can get your thoughts on that. Travis Rodgers, Locked on Rams. Alex Clancy, Locked on Cardinals. Oh, hope you guys had a happy Merry Christmas yesterday. We're recording this on Tuesday. Sorry, spoiler alert. We'll discuss that next. Locked On Crossover Thursday. This episode of Crossover Thursday is brought to you by our friends at Rocket Money. Did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions you forgot about or that you were paying for twice? That definitely happened to me. I had a few subscriptions I didn't even realize I was still paying for, and Rocket Money made it so easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant for all your finances, man. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitor your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow savings. It brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all the app's premium features. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon. This sucks. I was really looking forward to this game mattering and the Cardinals losing in Carolina in the fashion that they did. This would have been the final boss for Kyren Williams. This would have been it. In a game that matters, on the road, Saturday night, everybody's watching. You go win a game, and then pretty much the playoffs are in your hands, and the division's in your hands. Not the case. Let's talk about a team that has won recently, the Rams. Talk to me about Sean McVey and what he does on game days specifically that allows an inferior roster more times than not score more points than their opponents.
Yeah, well, I think it happens way before game day, to be honest. I think this is something, the Rams have an opportunity to do something this season that has never happened in the history of the league, and that's be 3 games under 500 in back-to-back seasons and make the playoffs both years. That's never happened before. They were 3-6 last year. They were 1-4 this year. And if they can get in and it's, they have the keys to the car in their hand, that's never happened before. That is, I think, much more about the culture that he's built, the environment that he's built, the ability to prepare guys, to put guys in a situation to succeed. But more than anything else, they don't roll, Alex. They just keep. I mean, there were a handful of different times last year, this year. I'm like, look, they got to get smart here, man. They got to, like you said a minute ago, they got to go down so they can go up. They got to have that 3 or 4 win season so you can get a high draft pick and turn that into a difference making player. And they don't. They just keep playing and they just keep playing and they just keep playing, and they eventually figure it out. And you see so many different teams around the league where the second it starts to get a little wobbly, guys get noisy, guys start chirping, guys start doing things, guys start making business decisions. The Rams really don't do that. So I think that's why they are where they are. And then you add in what you're talking about, the schematics on game day. He's really good at finding the matchup that is to his advantage. He's really good at finding the guy that day has the best matchup. That, it's Puka Nacua a lot of the time, but every once in a while it's like, hey, wait, did Tutu Atwell have 6 catches today? How in the world did that happen? Tutu Atwell hasn't had 6 catches in a month, and then Demarcus Robinson has back-to-back weeks where he has a pair of touchdowns. Demarcus Robinson hasn't caught a pass in 2 weeks. And now it's just, he's really good at finding that. Tyler Higbee comes back his first game of the season. He catches 1 pass, goes for a touchdown. He's just really good at finding that one matchup. And then it just kind of goes back to football 101, which is they've had the same 5 guys up front for the last 5 weeks. That makes a huge difference. Through the first 12 weeks of the season, they were cycling guys through left and right. Guys were hurt. Guys are coming off IR, going on IR. And Kyren Williams came back. Kyren Williams plus an offensive line that maybe isn't loaded with all pros, but it's the same 5 guys week after week after week. And those pieces start to move the way that you're expecting them to move. Kyren Williams is a good back. They run the football. They got a good quarterback, and they compete like crazy. They're not going to have a bunch of all pros on this team. They probably won't have any all pros on this team, but they're really competitive. They don't roll. And they make, and to your point about the situational football, they almost always get that right. They very, very rarely will do the things like, what are they doing right here? And when it does happen, you can see it on McVay's face. It's almost immediately he goes, and he'll go into those post-game press conferences, and you can see he knows, I missed that one. I should have done a different thing. And he's just on it, man. And the more I watch this league, the more I'm not so sure that isn't more important than literally everything else. You got to have a quarterback. You got to have an offense, blah, 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 blah. If your head coach is really, really good, you always have a chance. And he's really, really good.
Yeah. I mean, people forget, like, the Jeff Fisher years, Les Snead was going to get fired.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
He should have been fired.
Close.
He was on Steve Keim watch. Yeah. Like, he should have been fired multiple times. He takes a chance on a 30-year-old head coach, and the rest is history. Like, it's the wild, however old he was, 32, however old he was.
30.
Like, we saw Lane Kiffin. That didn't work with the Raiders. We saw a child get hired as a head coach. It was a bad idea. And then, the rest is history. And it's wild. You get rid of Jared Goff. It's like, I always thought that Jared Goff never got a shot. I never thought he was cool enough. But for Sean McVay, didn't give him the ropes. But, go ahead.
Well, I think what they did, and I think Goff is a great example of this. I'm with you. I think Jared Goff's a good football player. I think he's a good quarterback. I mean, Rams fans kind of tend to. He took the Rams to the Super Bowl.
Yep.
Okay? He was a Super Bowl caliber quarterback. Now he played poorly in the Super Bowl, but that's not an uncommon occurrence. But he's a good player. But I'll give Les Snead and Sean McVay credit for this. They realized that maybe they needed a little bit more there, and they took a big swing, 2 first-round draft picks. They just gave Jared Goff $100 million, and then they turned around and they shipped him out a season later. But they did get a little better. Matthew Stafford is better than Jared Goff. Mm-hmm. He was able to kind of make those. He's able to do that. Things like, look, man, we just got to figure it out on the fly. Stafford's one of the handful, maybe 8 or 10 guys in the league that can kind of do that on the run. And he did. They won the Super Bowl, and it worked. And I will give them credit till as long as I can, because they don't. I'll use this as an example too. This goes back to the Goff thing. They gave Jonah Jackson a bunch of money this offseason. He was their big free agent acquisition out of Detroit. They benched him, Alex. He hasn't played in the last few weeks because he wasn't good enough. And so many teams make these decisions based on, hey, we're paying this guy. He's got to play. The Rams don't do that. Who are my best 5 guys? Okay, Jackson ain't one of them. Sit down. We'll use you later, but we're going to go with these 5 guys. They make good decisions, not just financial decisions.
Yeah. Now talk to me about this, because I was in the camp, and it's easy to do this revisionist history, bring this up. I'm doing it very lightly. He's a rookie. He's going to get better. The scheme may not be best for him. I was in the camp of trading back from number 4, getting as much as you can, kicking the can down the road, getting an extra first rounder in 2025. Cardinals draft Marvin Harrison Jr., a guy they could have taken. 2 guys they could have taken are both on the Los Angeles Rams, and they're both teammates from college in Jared Verse and Braden Fisk, both of whom Jared Verse showed first, and then Braden Fisk has really come on of late. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's about right. He's getting more reps and playing more down the stretch. Byron Young, obviously, that's just such a Rams thing to do. Talk to me about the young guys up front as part of the new front 7 and what the impact they've made this year so far.
Well, I'll tell you, I think the best way to say it is Aaron Donald retired this year, and I don't want to say you haven't missed him because it's Aaron Donald, but you've been able to live life without him. And I think that's what it is. That would you rather have Aaron Donald? Of course you would. He's Aaron Donald. He might be the greatest player at that position in the history of the league. Yeah. But like you just said, Jared Verse is going to be an all-pro. Maybe not this year, but he's going to be. He's a special, special guy. He's a difference maker. Braden Fisk is one of those guys, when you watch week in and week out, he's in on a million plays. He's strong. He had a play against the Jets last week where he took their center and just walked him back to the quarterback. It was just unbelievable how good he is. And then you mentioned you got Kobe Turner and Byron Young from a year ago. These are just second-year guys, and they feel like seasoned vets. This is another example of why the Rams, I think, are always going to kind of be in it, because they knew that Aaron Donald's clock was ticking pretty loud, that he was getting ready, because they loaded up at those positions over the last 2 drafts. And when he did decide that he had had enough, they were ready to live and fight another day. Those guys have been great. Now, they're rookies, and they still have games where they kind of go. Verse in particular, as great as he is, sometimes he has his head down. Sometimes he's not kind of seeing the whole picture. Murray torched him, as you know, in week 2, and got him to come around up the middle and spin around that back door. So hopefully he's gotten better at that over the last several months. But those are really good players. They sat where they were. The question has always been, did the Rams try to move up to get Brock Bowers early in the draft? And that kind of seemed where they were headed. And I'm not so sure if you said, hey, do you want Brock Bowers or Jared Verse? And keep in mind, Bowers has been terrific.
Yeah, he's been great.
I'm not so sure the Rams don't go, no, man, we're good. We'll keep our guy. I think that's how good Verse has been.
Yeah, and just, circling it back, because there are more parallels than I thought between these two teams and the growth of the teams than I thought since we started recording this. Like, Monty Osborne's been great. Drafting, he's been great. And it's not just compared to Steve Keim's ineptitude. He's been great. By and large, he's made the right choices with the right players, and the right players have produced well enough to warrant where they were drafted. Now, Perry Johnson Jr. has regressed a little bit this year, but the way Sean McVay and Les Snead are drafting, the Cardinals are on that path also. And remember, Sean McVay wasn't the best coach in the NFL right away. Okay. No. He had growing pains like everybody else. So with Jonathan Gannon, just give it a little time. Okay. He's done. If a coach isn't the reason why you lose more than the reason why you win, you're on the good side. And I think Jonathan Gannon has been that. And Sean McVay now is kind of on autopilot because he's a maniac, but he's got great scouting background. He played the game. So did Jonathan Gannon. So there are similarities. I'm not saying Jonathan Gannon is going to be Sean McVay or anywhere close. I am saying that the GM head coach tandem in Arizona mirrors the beginning part of Sean McVay and Les Snead. You just have to see it come to fruition.
One of the things that they've been really good at too is, that Jared Verse was their first round draft pick since Jared Goff. They went down, they went from 2016 to 2024 without a first round pick, and they nailed it. So they finally picked in the first round, and they got a first round talent who's playing like a first round talent. Yeah. But what they've been able to do too is they've been able to find starters in other places in the draft that other people. I mean, their starting center was a 7th round rookie. Bo Limmer was drafted in the 7th round. Maybe a guy that makes the team, maybe he doesn't. He's starting at center, like we were talking about a second ago, because they decided that they were going to bench their big free agent acquisition, Jonah Jackson. It's like, you know what? It's not working. Go with the kid. And that takes, that takes the ability to trust in your head coach. They've got Jalen McCullough is a defensive back, undrafted free agent. He's starting for you. You've got Cam Kitchens, who's a rookie in the 3rd round. He's starting for you. You've just got guys that are all over. It's not just hitting at the top. They're hitting just throughout the draft. Puka Nacua in the 5th round a year ago. They just don't miss late in the draft. And never mind guys that make the team. These are guys that are starting for a playoff team. That's a batting average that I think is really hard to replicate.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about this anymore. Thank you. Travis Rodgers, Locked on Rams. Alex Clancy, Locked on Cardinals. Pass to victory next. Locked on Crossover Thursday. This episode of Crossover Thursday is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. The NFL playoffs are almost here, but it's not too late to get on regular season action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's bananas, man. Not only can you bet on who will win the game, but FanDuel also has bets for which player will score a touchdown, how many points each team will score, and so much more. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your chance at $250 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Alex Clancy, Locked on Cardinals. Travis Rodgers, Locked on Rams. Damn it. I wanted this game to matter for the Cardinals so badly. So badly. Because the Cardinals have had opportunities a couple times this year. They've come back. They've come from behind thrice on game-winning kicks early in the year. And then they've excremented the bed after their bye week on every game that was important, 2 against Seattle. And then in Carolina was with an inexcusable loss in Week 16. Irrespective of that, paths to victory for the Cardinals. It's rinse and repeat like it was in Week 2. 1, instead of saying stop Cooper Kupp, this has got to be a bracket Puka Nacua and make the old man beat you. I mean, and Cooper Kupp has really, ask my fantasy football team, regressed over the last handful of weeks. I'm not sure if he's still getting spied because is he more dangerous in a vacuum? I don't know what it is. You can talk a little bit more about that. But stopping Puka Nacua, keeping Kyren Williams in front of you, and finding a way to paper mache some sort of pass rush to get to the old man behind the line of scrimmage and make him potentially make a mistake, throw a sidearm pass that goes through a player's hands, gets intercepted, whatever it is. It's really simple with the Rams on paper, but everything gets blown up right when they put together a perfect game plan, which is what they do the majority of times.
Yeah, I think you're right. Let's start with Kupp, Alex, that he's not the player that he was. He still will be the guy that when you kind of have to have a third down play, that he's the one that I think that Matthew Stafford goes to first and foremost. But the two playmakers on this team right now are Nacua and Williams. Kupp is the name. Kupp is the guy, like you said, on fantasy football owners are like, hey, what? Like he didn't have a single hit against San Francisco. He only had a couple against the Jets last week, but Puka is the guy that gets down the field a little bit. Part of the thing those guys do so well is they're both so physical. They put them in very tight splits. They'll put one or the other of them in the slot almost every time. They're really useful in the running game. And all of a sudden you've got Puka Nacua hammering on an end, and then he kind of splits back out on the other side. And that's where he gets those free releases. They've been, and like you said, Matthew Stafford will throw you one occasionally, because he's taken chances. He's not just going to throw you in because you confuse him. He's just really been around way too long. There's not too many things you're going to see, or he's going to see, that he doesn't know exactly what's going on. And as far as this goes, I think you're going to get a whole big dose of Kyren Williams again. They've been really leaning on him, and he's been terrific. Blake Corum has finally started to play a little bit too. They finally started giving him the ball. Those guys are mirror images of each other. They're both just bowling balls. I think you can get a lot of those guys on Saturday night.
Yeah, and Tyler Higbee's going to score a touchdown. Death taxes, Tyler Higbee killing the Cardinals. I feel like that's the three things you can bank on. It's funny, like with Cooper Kupp, like I've had a crush on him forever. Like, because it's just, he makes it look easy. He was like Adam Thielen in Minnesota, where it's like he just finds his way into the end zone with the ball in his hands. Mm-hmm. And it's just something that, like, I say smart things once in a while, and this is going to be one of them. And it's going to be a metaphor. It's going to be simile, something.
Metaphor, simile, something.
I don't know. We'll see. I was terrible at the SATs. Puka Nacua is creamy peanut butter, and Cooper Kupp is chunky peanut butter. Like, Cooper Kupp is all elbows. Cooper Kupp is John Stockton. Cooper Kupp is like, I'm gonna beat you up along the way, but look good doing it. And Puka Nacua is like, I'm gonna use my flow here and run the hell right by you. Which is kind of like, I know that they're physical, but they do it in completely different ways, right?
Well, they're a lot more similar than you might think. That Puka's got the flowing hair, but you put it to you this way, that as long as you have one of those guys, I think you're in a pretty good spot, because they can both do the same. You can put both of those guys in all three wide receiver positions and feel really good about it. When the Rams were really struggling earlier in the year, it's when both of them were gone, because Demarcus Robinson can only play Demarcus Robinson's spot. Tutu Atwell can only play Tutu Atwell's spot. Those other three guys can play all three of the spots. So it really gives you a lot of optionality. Puka's the headliner at the moment. He's he's got that, like you said, he's got the hair, he's got the personality, he's physical, he's fun, he'll chirp a little bit. Like he's a really fun football player to watch, but the way that he and Kupp go about it are actually pretty similar.
Okay. Yeah. And one thing that's going to happen, path to victory, this is Cardinals fans. You ready? 3, 2, well, you ready to say, of course? 3, this is when Trey McBride scores a touchdown when the season's over. Oh, of course. Yeah. All of the everydayers have said that at the same time. This is when Trey McBride's going to have 3 touchdowns in a game, when it doesn't matter anymore. But I will say, like, all negativity aside, after the Cardinals have been bounced, Trey McBride's been fantastic. Okay. Trey McBride is always open. Finally, the Cardinals have somebody who is always open since Larry Fitzgerald's been gone. And the Rams haven't had that issue. Cooper Kupp's always open. And now Puka Nacua is always open. They find ways. It's scheme. It's feel with the quarterback. Whatever it is, they're always open. And it's Devontae Adams, always open. And the Cardinals haven't had a guy like that. And Trey McBride now is always open. He's just great at getting in space. He can run over anybody. Him and Kyler were on the same page. Unfortunately, it didn't really manifest into anything when it was needed a couple days ago. But getting Trey McBride involved is how the Cardinals win games. We'll see if James Conner plays. We won't know until later in the week. Yeah. Jonathan Gannon said, if he's healthy, he's playing. He's not sitting Kyler. Like, you got to put the best product out there. It's an unwritten rule in football. Sure. You got to play your guys. So I will tell you this: regardless if the Cardinals are in playoff contention or not, they're going to try and rip the hearts out of Rams fans.
Yeah.
But it's not to play spoiler, which is a loser mentality in mind. Blaming the refs, let's play spoiler, loser mentality. Go rip the hearts out because it means something in the NFC West, and you need to leave some sort of lasting impression that you will be a team to be reckoned with come 2025.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I do not think that this is an easy game for the Rams. And this, look, everybody's playing for a job every single Sunday, right? The NFL is ruthless. Everything shows on tape. And if you go out there and don't compete, people are going to see it. People are going to remember. And that next job may come back and not be available to you because we've seen it so many times where all of a sudden a guy, I'll use another example for the Rams. Cam Curl was playing for the Washington Commanders last year and was on a garbage team, but the Rams are talking about how they saw him late in the season really competing, and all of a sudden they're like, we'll take a guy like that. Now Cam Curl's starting safety for the LA Rams, and he's on a pretty good team. So guys that want to stick in this league, especially those guys that maybe aren't guaranteed starters, maybe looking for their next team, those guys are going to go out there and play like crazy because they're playing for their job.
For sure. Yeah, it's going to be fun, man. It's going to show a lot about the intestinal fortitude and maturity of the Cardinals team, which, listen, I tell people, and like, maybe you can we'll give a moment of zen. What show was that? A moment of zen? I can't remember. It wasn't Craig Kilborn. Was it Jon Stewart? Daily Show, yeah. So here's your moment of zen. If you're too young for that, Merry Christmas, but I don't care. So with coaching and how you approach the game, and how every team is on their own journey. You can't compare the Cardinals to the Ravens or the Cardinals to the Steelers, who have a history of stability and winning. You can take little incremental wins with you as takeaways from the season without it being a green ribbon like participation trophy. Yeah. So that's a big thing for the Cardinals for the last 2 weeks of the year. They haven't always been the most mature organization. And if the Cardinals can go in, play a tight game, and play really hard, it's not a participation trophy. It's something that's like, you know what? Respect the damn game like they have been. Jonathan Gannon's been great. Do it again. Doesn't matter if you're not going to make the playoffs. Just show up, play a tough game, hopefully come out with a win. We're not looking for a higher draft pick here.
No,
how important is that? I mean, the Rams have been through it too.
The Rams, the 2 seasons that Sean McVey has not made the playoffs, they competed. Even the year they were 5-12, right? The year after they won the Super Bowl, when everything that could go wrong went wrong. Stafford was gone, the O-line was gone, Aaron Donald was gone, Kupp was gone. Like the whole thing came unglued. They got Baker Mayfield at the end of that season, and they went 2-3 in their last 5 games. They weren't playing for anything, but Mayfield was playing for his career. McVey was coaching so he could show that, it's not just I got all these great players, but I actually know what I'm doing. And they showed up the last 5 weeks of the season. I think you're right. I think it's an incredible indicator of what sort of stability, what sort of culture you have. And, coaching and culture, it's cliched and it feels like it's an easy thing to say, but having watched Sean McVey for 8 years now, it's true, man. Like you get it, and it's not just that this guy goes here and this guy blocks that guy. That's important too, but it's what sort of culture is in that building, and you'll get an answer to what kind of culture is in that Arizona building, over the last 2 weeks. Because, like you said, the season, went in a direction last week that I don't think anybody's expecting. I certainly wasn't expecting it, but what happens next, I think is telling.
At Travis Rodgers on Twitter, Locked on Rams, Travis Rodgers, Alex Clancy, Locked on Cardinals. Thank you for making Crossover Thursday your first listen free wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube. Hope you had a Merry Christmas. Tomorrow is Friday. I know people forget what day it is after Christmas and before New Year's. I'm here for you. I'm like the time lady, but for days. We'll talk to you on our respective podcasts tomorrow.